Webster defines crunch time as a critical moment or period, like the end of a game, when decisive action is needed. Every sports fan knows this time in the game. Your palms sweat just a little more, your heart races just a little bit faster, and you live and die with every play until the final seconds tick off the clock and you're either celebrating a victory or disappointed by the defeat. The team at Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network understands just how critical these moments are. For us, it begins as soon as the next set of games are on the board. We evaluate the opening lines and any breaking news throughout the week. We cover each game inside and out, whether it's from inside the locker room to a huddle down on the field, the court, or the ice. We take you inside the meeting room with scouts, coaches, and executives. We have our fingers on the pulse of all the sports that we cover: the National Hockey League, NBA, college basketball, college football, and the National Football League. We are the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network, and we're here to help you find your sports advantage. After all the data has been crunched, we then turn it over to Kenneth for the best analysis around. His unique perspective in both understanding the data and how it applies to the game and how you win is the Crunch Time Sports Advantage. Are you ready? The Crunch Time Jet is fueled and ready for takeoff, and the Crunch Time Express is about to leave the station. Your VIP pass has been approved, so all aboard.
And Jessica, fantastic job as always, leading us into exactly how our top 25 is determined. And folks, after a absolutely crazy weekend of college football, we have new data. And with that new data, we have a fresh top 25. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. And coming in at number 25 is the Iowa Hawkeyes. Iowa comes coming off of that 35-7 loss at Ohio State on Saturday afternoon, dropped all the way from 10-25 with their second loss on the season. So they're barely hanging on to our top 25 at the moment. So we'll see if going forward, does this team get bumped out of the top 25 or can they climb their way back up? Coming in at number 24, the Trojans of Southern California. And this is a team that is absolutely struggling to find its way. Was 17th last week. That loss to Minnesota absolutely dropped them down to number 25. And this is a team to watch. They have a big time matchup coming up this weekend hosting Penn State. This is a team that could be on alert as far as being knocked out of the top 25. Coming in at number 23, fresh off of a absolute upset there in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and that is the Tennessee Volunteers. And my good friend Julie Balls, we talked about it. Your team off not as good as what the pre-conference numbers showed that they were. I will get into this in the podcast coming up later on this week about just how much this Tennessee offense is struggling. Folks, watch out. This Tennessee slide may not be over just yet. Coming in at number 22, first time making their way into the polls as they were unranked last weekend, and that is the Pitt Panthers. Pitt comes into this week with a 5-0 record and looking like a team that wants the challenge for the Atlantic Coast Conference championship game. Watch out. This team is absolutely rolling on offense, and with a stifling defense, could be a team to watch. Coming in at number 21, and they are fresh off of an absolute beatdown of the Florida State Seminoles there this past weekend. Clemson up just 4 spots with that 29-13 win over FSU. Clemson is starting to find their way this season, so Dabo Swinney's starting to figure things out with this 2024 roster. This is a team to definitely keep an eye on as we continue to go on this season. Coming in for the first time in our rankings history, a service academy is now ranked not only in the top 25, but they check in at number 20, and that is the Black Knights of Army. The Army Black Knights coming to this week fresh off of a win 49-7 over Tulsa, no longer unranked, and I expect this team to continue to roll here for the next couple of weeks as they have just absolutely looked fantastic. Head coach Todd Monken doing a fantastic job there for the Army Black Knights, and they have absolutely shown themselves to be worthy of that top 20 ranking. Excuse me. A team that has not shown themselves worthy of their ranking is the number 19 Missouri Tigers. We had Missouri 4th last week, but it was one of those teams where we knew that the ranking was going to take a nosedive once they stepped up in weight class, and boy, did they ever. That trip down to College Station, even though they were the higher ranked team, they were still a underdog in that ball game, and folks, A&M took care of business, 41-10, and it wasn't even that close of a contest. So, Missouri, no time to lick your wounds. You're in the Southeastern Conference, so you got to get ready to play again here against another stiff team coming up. So, Coach Eli Drinkowitz, you got all of your work cut out for you over the second half of the season. Coming in at number 18, and we kind of had some people questioning why we had Washington ranked last week at number 22. We felt that the metrics were good enough for this team, and the record did not really reflect how good they were playing. Well, coming off of a 27-17 home win over Michigan in their first home game as a member of the Big Ten, this team is up 3 spots, I should say, from number 21 last week. Checking in at number 18 is the Washington Huskies. Fantastic job there for the Huskies so far in the season. 4-2, but still having a much better season than what was expected from them in the preseason. Checking in at number 17, Matlock, my good friend at him along with my good friend Julie Balls host that fantastic show, Matlock and Loaded on 850 The Ticket down on the beautiful Emerald Coast. And folks, please send all of your thoughts and prayers down as they are getting ready to be hit by what we're expecting to be a Cat 5 hurricane and Hurricane Milton. Please, if you haven't already evacuated, please hunker down and just stay safe. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. But checking in at number 17 is the Mustangs, Southern Methodist University. And SMU unranked last week, but coming off of a very hard-fought 34-27 win on the road at Louisville, that knocked Louisville from the rankings, and they were basically replaced by SMU this week. So, fantastic job there by Rhett Lashley, and his Mustangs are absolutely in a prime position to compete for an ACC title berth coming up later on this year. A very heartbreaking loss if you're a fan of the Group of Five, and that is the James Madison Dukes. JMU was ranked number 9 last week in a very hard-fought loss as a double-digit favorite, 21-19 at Louisiana Monroe, and that was just a very hard-fought game. And credit to ULM for getting that win over JMU. JMU still having a really good season, but that loss is definitely going to hamper them going forward. We'll see if they can hang on to a top 25 spot here over the next few weeks. Checking in at number 15 is the Ole Miss Rebels, and a shout out to all of our great friends there for the Rebels. Rebels were ranked 20th last week for us. A very 27-3 workmanlike win over South Carolina last week. Got off to a fast start with some questionable decision making by Shane Beamer of South Carolina very early in that game. Basically put his team in a hole that they could not climb out of. Big time injury concern there for the Ole Miss Rebels, as Trey Harris, fantastic wide receiver for Ole Miss, left that game with a lower leg injury. Questionable if he's going to be able to go this week, as Ole Miss has a big-time game with rival LSU down in Baton Rouge. We will definitely be keeping our eyes on that situation there for Ole Miss. But Ole Miss checks in at number 15 this week, up 5 spots from where they were last week. Coming in at number 14, and folks, maybe one of the most dangerous teams in all of college football, and that is the Texas A&M Aggies. 5-1 on the season. We had them ranked 24th last week, but as we mentioned earlier, that 41-10 win over Missouri bumped them up 10 spots. And if you're an Aggie fan right now, you are absolutely kicking yourself for letting that game opening weekend get away from you, because you would probably be well within inside of the top 10 if you had that undefeated record. But be that as it may, you're in a fantastic spot there, Texas A&M, to continue to move up in the polls. And speaking of the team that beat them in week 1, is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, up 2 spots last week, coming off of a bye. So there was no better place to be last weekend in college football if you were a ranked team and you were a double-digit favorite, was to have a bye week. Notre Dame sits at the number 13 position for us this week, and will look to continue to climb their way back into the college football playoffs, as we had, like I said, a bevy of upset last week. We left Notre Dame for dead last week, a couple of weeks ago, as far as making the college football playoffs. Notre Dame at least have a pulse right now, so we're going to put them, instead of giving them the do not resuscitate, we're going to put them back on life support and see how the rest of the Notre Dame season plays out. That win over Texas A&M may start to cancel out that loss to Northern Illinois here, and that's what we're kind of seeing here. Checking in at number 12, and it is our highest Group of 5 ranked team, and that is the Broncos of Boise State out of the Mountain West. This team was 15th last week, but with another fantastic performance by that fantastic running back there for Boise State, Mr. Gentry, is just having a Barry Sanders. You got to go all the way back to 1988 when Barry put up those kind of numbers, winning the Heisman at Oklahoma State. This young man is on that same kind of pace there. Watch out. He's the Heisman Trophy front runner for a reason. But his team is also getting it done. 62-30 win over Utah State last week. Boise State, with their only loss coming all the way back early in the year, I think it was a 3-point loss to Oregon. That loss is definitely not going to hurt Boise State going forward. If this team can run the table, this team could absolutely find themselves in the college football playoffs. Checking in at number 11, and that is the Penn State Nittany Lions, 5-0 on the season. And with Penn State, we're seeing a team here that actually slid down 4 spots from last week. Penn State was actually number 7. That win over UCLA did not do Penn State any favors with our metrics. 27-11, and folks, that score may be a little bit misleading there. So Penn State sitting just outside of the top 10, but within striking distance of a playoff berth at the moment. Checking in at number 10 is the Kansas State Wildcats. And K-State up 12 spots from last week, fresh off of a bye. Usually don't see teams move up that many spots off of a bye. This is probably a correction within our data that probably had K-State rated a little bit low last week and was absolutely corrected. And now Kansas State finds themselves within the top 10. That 4-1 record, very impressive. They're in the Big 12, and this is a team absolutely within striking range of some teams there trying to make their way into the Big 12 title game. Coming in at number 9 this week, and the Canes up 5 spots from last weekend, from 14th, with a dramatic come from behind win in the fourth quarter over Cal, 39-38. The metrics like it when you win, but this tight wire act that Miami is walking across this last 2 weeks could absolutely come back to bite them going forward. But these were the games that we criticized Mario Cristobal for losing in years past. 2 weekends in a row, with the win over Virginia Tech 2 weeks ago, and now with this win over Cal, you're starting to see this team win some of those games that they were losing in years past. So credit to Mario Cristobal. Fantastic job there in the fourth quarter by Cam Ward. Need to see you play 4 full quarters, young man, and your team play 4 full quarters if you want to win that ACC championship and go on to the college football playoffs. Checking in at number 8, up 7 spots from last week, is the BYU Cougars. And Brigham Young University, out of the Big 12, up 7 spots from number 15 last week. This team is absolutely impressing me with the job that they've done so far. 5-0 on the season, some hard-fought wins early on in the season. And as they get deeper and deeper into conference play, we'll see if this team can continue to battle and get some of those wins that they've been able to get thus far. Coming in at number 7, their conference rival out of the Big 12, and that is the Iowa State Cyclones. Iowa State also sitting there with a 5-0 record, up 14 spots from last week, with that 43-21 win over Baylor. Our metrics like when you're a big favorite and you absolutely laid a hammer down on a team. This is what was expected out of Iowa State against Baylor last week. They did not disappoint. And that's why you saw the massive jump from Iowa State up from where they were last week. And like I said, really cannot say enough really good things about the way that this team is performing. Rocco Beck, their quarterback for Iowa State, having just a really solid season so far. So they're going to need to ride that arm of that young quarterback and continue to play some stifling defense as we get deeper into conference play here. And out of the Eastern Conference, coming in at number 6 is the Georgia Bulldogs, and they absolutely hunkered down this past weekend. Up 5 spots from where they were just a week ago at number 11. So Kirby Smart, fantastic win off of the bye. I'm sorry, off of that loss to Alabama 2 weeks ago. And just absolutely just doing enough to take care of Auburn there between the hedges. 31-13. Folks, when you're in the conference play, getting a win, no matter how you get it, is just absolutely significant at this point of the season. So fantastic job there by Kirby Smart and fantastic job by his entire team getting refocused and being ready to play against Auburn. Checking in at number 5, and that is the Alabama Crimson Tide, off of one of the biggest losses in recent memory. 40-35 loss here in my backyard in Music City to the Vanderbilt Commodores. And folks, before anyone says that losing to Vandy is a horrible thing, let's just remember this team already knocked off Virginia Tech early on in the season, whereas within a few plays here or there from knock off Missouri. So them knocking off Alabama is not the shock that it was or would have been 5-6 years ago. Fantastic job by Clark Lee. Horrible job by Kalen DeBoer. Something that Coach Saban said in the pregame show there, where he said it's harder to get a team up the following week off of an emotional win like they had over Georgia versus what Kirby had to do getting his team refocused after losing that game to Alabama. Alabama could not stop the run for Vanderbilt, and they had way too many penalties. I know what you're going to say. They only had 6 penalties in the game, but it was giving Vandy extra possessions with those penalties is what cost Alabama in this ball game. So Alabama, you would now need to do this week what Georgia did last week. Get refocused and get ready for a home game against South Carolina. This is going to be a very interesting week of practice for Alabama, and they will absolutely need to be hyper-focused going against South Carolina this coming Saturday. Checking in at number 4, up 2 spots. Let me make sure I got that right. Yes, up 2 spots last week, and that is America's team, the Indiana Hoosiers. Curt Cignetti, my early season coach of the year, he has the Indiana Hoosiers in football, ladies and gentlemen, 6-0. They became the team to become bowl eligible on Saturday with that 41-24 win over Northwestern. I absolutely love the job that this coach is doing. Mr. Rourke, transfer quarterback from Ohio, has absolutely been everything that this head coach and this program absolutely needed. And this team could be on a stretch to where there could be a few more wins there for the Indiana Hoosiers. So America's team will continue on as our number 4 team in this week's poll. Checking in at number 3 is Quack Quack Attack, the Oregon Ducks. And Oregon up a few spots from where they were last weekend at number 8. 31-10 win at home on Friday night against Michigan State. And just a very dominant defensive performance there for Oregon. Dylan Gabriel, 2 interceptions early in the first half. Folks, if they don't turn the ball over, this is a 30-point win by Oregon in this contest. No look ahead from them last weekend as they have the showcase showdown with Ohio State coming up this Saturday as they welcome in the Buckeyes into Autzen Stadium. Folks, that is going to be a setting that is fitting for college football. Beautiful atmosphere. I just hate we can't be there live to cover it. So Oregon comes in at number 3. And the team that checks in number 2 is the Ohio State Buckeyes. Want to say a quick hello to my good friend Amber Holly, big time Ohio State fan. And Amber, your team up from where they were last weekend, up 1 spot. That 35-7 win over Iowa. Ohio State offense struggled in the first half. But once they kind of figured out what needed to be done against Iowa in the second half, exploded in the third quarter and just cruised the rest of the way in the fourth. 35-7 win. Iowa got a late touchdown to get on the board there. So our metrics and game flow as far as not only were you in the lead, but were you in control, Ohio State was in control the entire game, and our numbers absolutely reflect that. So the Buckeyes up 1 spot to the number 2 spot, and checking in again at the number 1 spot this week for us, coming off of a bye, is the Texas Longhorns. And Texas, fantastic job once again getting ready for their matchup with Oklahoma coming up this. And we're going to start to learn a little bit more about the Longhorns over the next 3 to 4 weeks. We expect Quinn Ewers to be a go on Saturday against Oklahoma. If not, then we'll see some snaps of Arch Manning coming into this contest. So fantastic job there by the Longhorns so far on the season. And we expect this team to continue to play well going into their big rivalry game coming up. So always a fantastic matchup when we're talking about Texas and Oklahoma in the Red River shootout. So Texas, hopefully you spent your bye week getting ready for Oklahoma, because we saw what happened to teams that were not ready to go this past weekend. So learn from the mistakes of others. And now let's take a look at our teams in our top 25 teams in action this week. And we're going to start with the number 22 Pitt Panthers as they will welcome in Cal in a big-time matchup in the ACC this week. And we're going to stay right there in the ACC as number 21 Clemson will travel to Winston-Salem to take on the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. UAB will travel to number 20 Army as Army will look to continue their undefeated season. In one of our top 20 matchups where both teams are ranked, number 18 Washington will travel to Iowa City to take on number 25, the Iowa Hawkeyes. In our big time matchup of the weekend, number 2, Ohio State travels to Eugene to take on number 3, Oregon. Number 11, Penn State will travel to Los Angeles to take on number 24, USC. The Arizona Wildcats will travel to Provo to take on number 8, BYU. Number 10, Kansas State will travel to Boulder to take on Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. Number 7, Iowa State will travel to Morgantown to take on West by God, West Virginia, the Mountaineers. Stanford will travel back to the Midwest to take on rival Notre Dame as the Irish check in at number 13. Number 19, Missouri, in a get-right spot, will travel up to Massachusetts to take on UMass in a very important game for Missouri just to get back into the win column. Number 12, Boise State will travel to the islands to take on Hawaii. We talked about this matchup being very pivotal for the rest of the season for Alabama, as they will welcome in South Carolina to Tuscaloosa as the number 5 ranked Crimson Tide look to get right after that loss against Vanderbilt. Mississippi State will travel to Athens to take on number 6, Georgia. In a big-time matchup, number 15, Ole Miss, traveling down to Baton Rouge to take on LSU. Like I said, we have some injury updates to keep our eyes on for that contest. Number 1, Texas, travels to Dallas to take on Oklahoma in just one of the best scenes in college football, as half of that stadium at the Cotton Bowl will be burnt orange. The other half will be crimson. So big time matchup there for Texas as they take on unranked Oklahoma. The Florida Gators, off an impressive win against UCF last week. That team is starting to look a little bit different to me down there in Gainesville. They travel up to Knoxville as they will take on rival and number 23 ranked Tennessee Volunteers. Coming off of that loss to Arkansas, we'll see as one team arrow starting to point up a little bit, other going in the opposite direction. We'll see how that matchup plays out. And our final ranked team, number 16, James Madison, will host Coastal Carolina in a very pivotal matchup there for the Dukes coming up. Our teams on a bye this week. We have 4 of them this week. Number 4, Indiana. Number 9, the Hurricanes of Miami. Number 14, Texas A&M. And number 17, SMU. All 4 teams on a bye this week as they kind of rest up and do a little bit of self-scouting as they get ready to start the second half of this 2024 campaign in college football. Some of the top questions we got about this week's top 25. Why is Alabama ahead of Georgia since Alabama is coming off of a loss to Vanderbilt and Georgia's coming off of a loss to Alabama? Is it simply because of the head-to-head matchup? We also noticed that that same question was asked, why is Texas A&M behind Notre Dame? Is it because of the head-to-head matchup? I can answer that. The answer is no. It has nothing to do with the head-to-head. If you want to think about it, we use a point system to break down each area for a team. It includes your power rankings. It includes some of your offensive metrics, your defensive metrics, your special teams metrics, and we add all of those points up. And once we get that point total, that's where your overall ranking comes from. So it has nothing to do with head-to-head matchup, and really it's just about a snapshot of what we've seen during the first 6 weeks of the season thus far. Miami actually did not really drop. They actually moved up after the win against Cal. We were projecting that Miami might have dropped based on the way that that game flowed against Cal, but Miami was actually able to not only move up a couple of spots, it really had more to do with how we were projecting where Miami might finish in this week's poll. So Miami actually did not drop after beating Cal. They actually moved up a couple of spots. So another question that we've gotten is, why is LSU not ranked? And LSU's not ranked because their overall metrics, both on the offense, defense, and special teams, are not that good. And if you look at LSU's schedule, LSU does not have a quality win yet on the season. Their one matchup thus far was all the way back in the opening week of the season, and they lost that game to USC there in Las Vegas. So if you look at the rest of the schedule for LSU, a 44-21 win over FCS Nichols, that's not going to get you ranked. A 3-point win over South Carolina. Yes, it was on the road, but still not enough to really qualify as a quality win. Beating UCLA by 17 at home, we know how bad the Bruins are right now. So that's not helping LSU out so far. And then getting a 32-point win over South Alabama. Again, a group of five team, not really going to help LSU move up in the rankings. So that was something that we absolutely noticed. And LSU could absolutely change the narrative on that if they're able to get a win this weekend. And some teams, final question, who were the teams that barely missed out on being ranked this week? And I will say, and it breaks my heart that they were just a few points out of making the top 25, and that was Navy. Navy sat, I want to say 16 points behind Iowa as far as getting that number 25 spot in this weekend's poll. So if Iowa stumbles this week, could see for the first time ever not only having one of our service academies ranked, but two of them could be ranked going into next week. Something to keep an eye on. Other teams that barely missed out on being ranked was teams like Tulane, Oklahoma, and I'm looking here who else barely missed out on being ranked. Nebraska, they also barely missed out on being ranked. So those teams with some help this weekend could find themselves in next week, I should say, top 25. Folks, that is our show for this week. And as always, want to thank you, whether you're watching this live or on replay on YouTube, whether you're checking out the feed on Twitter, or listening to us on your favorite podcast platform. Want to just always say thank you for listening, watching, or both to the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network. So, on behalf of my fantastic team, our talented host, Summer, and for the Top 25 show, Jessica, also our senior handicapping analyst, Billy, who does a great job each and every week of setting our opening lines and really setting the stage for me to come in and really make the in-week adjustments. This is Kenneth, founder and senior analyst for the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network, signing off. Once again, our thoughts and prayers are with everyone there in Florida as they get ready for Hurricane Milton to have landfall hit sometime Wednesday. Please stay safe. And once again, our thoughts and prayers are with you. For our entire team here, have a great rest of your week. And as always, God bless everybody.